finally the season 3 video is out. I have seen season 3 for the first time in my life, and it's a very special one because this time I chose to take notes in this notebook. They're right here, and they are, you can definitely see, if you can see them, which generation I grew up in, because they are so ugly, but it's nice. I wanted to make the video a little bit better. I wanted to remember what I wanted to say, and the only way I could do that is to take notes while I watched. So hopefully I am saying everything I want to say, and as always, if there's anything you want to say about this season or about anything I'm saying, please feel free to write it in the comments. I love having these, not discussions, but just these talks about this stuff. I'm so into it, I just love it. So if you have any thought or anything you want to comment, please do. Of course, this is the start of the whole prison era, and we have the prison versus Woodbury. We have this survival group versus this, like, town that seems to be working so well, and this manipulative governor was the villain that we'll get into. And then on top of that we have Andrea, which is in itself a big talking point, I know, when people watch this season, so we'll get into that later on. I'm not trying to recap every episode here. This is more about how season 3 feels to me and what I think works well and what I did notice while I watched, and then what generally frustrated me while watching. So yes, we'll get into it now. One of the first things I noticed when I watched season 3 is in the house scene, and when they take over the prison, they just feel so much more coordinated and working as a group right from the start when they cleared Hole out. Apart, like, they don't feel like the group we saw in season 2, and that's good. It's good. It's a nice change. It's nice that they feel like they have been together for a little while when we start, and they are now upgraded or better as a group. And I just like that there's more confidence, there's more structure, and it kind of feels earned in some way. So I like that. And throughout the prison arc, there's also a lot of things, and these are things I'm gonna get into later on, like throughout this video. But there's just a lot of like small moments happening between characters that I really do appreciate this season. Is moments that the series right now that comes out, like in this day and age, this is like from 2012, which in itself is crazy. The seasons that comes out today of something are like basically like 9 episodes or something even lower, and they don't have the time for these small moments that a season like this does. So those are moments that we're gonna get into later. So they carry like a lot of emotional weight, and they make us believe that this is actually a real thing that's happening, even though we of course know it's not, but you know what I mean. The first thing in the prison that I have wrote down that I feel like is crazy is Rick basically killing Tomas. And if you can't remember who Tomas is, he is basically one of the prisoners that was left in the prison, which all that is crazy in itself, that's left in the prison and are waiting for people to rescue them. Basically none, of course, is going to rescue them, and there is one called Tomas. He is a bit of a knobhead, so they choose Rick after Tomas gave him a little bit of BS. Like, Rick still took a little bit too much from him, in my opinion, but he then ends up slicing him straight in the head, and that just already shows that Rick is another Rick than what we saw in season 2. And I, right from the off, wrote down and was like, I'm gonna say that, because he is that in one of the first like episode shows that, okay, we have a more serious Rick right here, and I know he's gonna get more serious down the line. I have seen that, and I know that, so already here it's starting. I really liked how much the actors actually like leaned into their character mannerisms this season. Not because, like, of course it makes it more realistic, but it's not necessarily why I wrote it down. I just like it because it feels like good acting, and it feels like someone like Rick. The two main ones I thought about right here is Rick and Daryl. They are really have their characters' mannerisms down to a T. The whole Rick lean and how he talks, and Daryl just being Daryl. There's so many memes of his movements being made fun of on the internet, but he is like so consistently doing it throughout this series. Is insane. So I just liked that there are so much like their characters. It's so good, and that's one thing I wrote down. Another one is, of course, in this season, Herschel is pretty early on getting bit in his leg. so he gets it chopped off. I just wanted to say, I feel like he got bit in a stupid way, because he got bit by a zombie leaning up towards a wall, and he basically is trying to walk over it, putting his leg between its legs and very close to his mouth. And I couldn't help but feel like they have been in this thing for a little while now. Are we still walking over zombies, not making sure they are dead? Just me. It was not dead, it bit him in the leg, he gets his leg chopped off, and we get it confirmed that in this world, you can chop, if I get bit in my hand, I can chop my shit off, and I will survive. We get that confirmed, which is nice. Herschel is actually at one point not breathing, basically dead. Like, he is dead for a little while, I don't know how, yeah. And Laurie actually saves him with mouth to mouth, and that is a little thing I feel like a lot of people are actually not remembering, because of course we hate Laurie and all of that stuff, but she actually kind of saved Herschel, like not kind of, she straight up saved Herschel from being dead, and Herschel is one of my favorite characters, so I feel like that's a little bit underrespected. And yeah, because later on, Laurie dies, and yes, I did celebrate that. I celebrated that a lot. I loved it. I felt that was earned. She should have died a long time ago. If you want to know why I hate her so much, you gotta watch the season 2 and season 1 review for that matter. I never liked her. She is one of the worst characters in the series. Like, not played, like not like that, but she is just written to be awful. Hate her. There's also Carl that starts to change here, and we'll get deeper into that, but you can already feel he's colder, he's more capable, he's less of a kid, and it's happening really fast. And it of course really shows in episode 4 when all this happens, because he has to kill his own mother, who just got killed. He just had to make sure that she is not a zombie, but while he did it, she wasn't actually a zombie yet. She was just out of it, because Maggie basically cut her open to take the baby out, so she would die either way and become a zombie, but Carl was the one who had to take her down so she wasn't to become a zombie, which is in itself pretty insane. And I was a lot after Carl in the second season, like in terms of I didn't like him. I thought he was playing a realistic child, but at this point he's not a child anymore. He is by age, but not by how he acts. So then there's T-Dog finally getting some. He has like one moment where I just liked that he was the only one who fought for the fact that he wanted to have Oscar and Axel stay with the group. I like that he stood up for the prisoners there, and he like had his old moral compass, and he just wasn't this background character. Don't get me wrong, he still loses the argument because his democracy kind of took over, so, and that's fair, but it makes his sacrifice a little bit harder later on, because there's basically a zombie. A lot of zombies gets in because a lot of stuff happens, and he actually ends up dying. And T-Dog is an OG, so losing him immediately tells us as a viewer that nobody is safe this season at all, because later that same episode, Laurie dies, so that's maybe, I did get that a little bit twisted right there, but they really showed that they could kill two OGs off in one episode is insane, and that shows that we are not safe. In episode 4, mind you. Episode 4 is the best episode of this season. It also is that on IMDb, so I know I'm not wrong. So yeah, that is a great episode of television. And it is sad to see T-Dog go. He actually also went out helping Carol, trying to get away from some zombies. So in his last moments, he tried to help. And it's also sad later on when the other ones finds him all eaten up. So yeah, one of the great moments I love that happens at the prison is of course the sex scene where Maggie and Lynn has sex. It's not like we see it, they have it on top of the tower, and it's not the fact that that happens that I love that moment, but it's just Rick and Daryl and I think Carol are kind of making fun of it or having fun about it, and to Glenn and Maggie, and I just like that moment. It's a fun moment, it shows a human aspect, and it's just something that there may have not been time for if a show like this was cut down to like 9 episodes. So I wanted to have that in here because I wrote it down. I also have written in here, and this is a very important one for me, they all are, but Beth is such an MVP this season. Beth is 17 years old, and she takes care of Rick's baby like no other. And Rick, of course, has this trauma moment that I'm gonna get into later on, because I have something to say about that too. But after Laurie dies, in a scene where he gets that note to know that, great acting, great acting. He's absolutely flawless acting in that scene. He goes down a little bit of a dumb route, and basically throughout the whole season, Rick is not really home, or he doesn't really have too much time to be with his baby. And Beth and Carol are like taking this baby and being like, yeah, okay, we have this one, we take this one. And I absolutely love that. She's caring for the baby, she's present, she's so nice. And there's also these small moments again where she sings, and it just feels like you really believe this season that this group are like so tight knit. You believe that they all care for each other. There's so many moments where like two characters interact with each other that you didn't think would interact with each other, and it just makes it so much more believable that they are actually a group that cares for each other. And when then something happens to one of them, you believe, oh shit, they are all really sad about this thing happening to this person. Yeah, I just appreciate that compared to some stuff I see today in a series where that doesn't really happen. So yeah, I just like that. There's Herschel's and Glenn's back and forth throughout the whole season is also, I feel, underappreciated. Herschel and Glenn and Herschel and Rick, I just think everything with Herschel, he's just such a good character. He's just such a good character and works so well with, in my opinion, specifically Glenn and Herschel and Rick, the way he is to those two. Perfect. So now we shift a little bit over to Woodbury. It's not that I have too many notes personally on the Woodbury as a town, but I have a little bit on the governor, and I think his impression works well on the viewer. At the start, they try to trick us into, is he bad, is he not? Of course we know there's gonna be a villain, so he's probably bad. But then the way they really show us, I believe, is when he kills off like innocent soldiers cold-hearted by lying them to their faces and then just ambushing them and killing them. That scene works really well. It's a really cool scene. He does it to basically take their stuff, and even though it is a little bit cartoony, and I know that the governor is getting a lot of hate for being not a lot of hate. He's getting some hate for being a little bit cartoony, and this maybe is a little bit. It was a little bit too easy, maybe. But it is a nice moment. It's a chilling scene. It's very effective. It kind of shows us who he is. So, but yeah, I like it. There's this scene later on after this where Michonne, who is a character I'm gonna get into later, Andrea and Michonne is gonna have their own chapter. So I'm gonna get a little bit more into those because I have a lot of notes on those too. Michonne is noticing the bullet holes from this in the cars and already there, seeing through the governor's manipulation and lies. And I just did write that down because that was a nice moment for Michonne being like, why would there be bullet holes in the cars? And I just liked that. Then there is of course the whole governor and his daughter plot. I think it's fine. It is logically for a guy who lost his wife and his kid to hope and think that the kid is still in there somewhere. So I don't hate that plot at all. It's again a little bit cartoony, a little bit Marvel-like. That's of course something I don't like unless it is Marvel. But I still think it works somewhat, and I do still think it works realistically. I do think that somebody in real life, if that happens, could believe that and could be like that. So I'm still here for it. Another thing that also shows who the governor is later on when they have Glenn and Maggie, basically in the interrogation of specifically Maggie, where he basically gets her to be naked. I don't think all naked, but almost naked, and teasing to basically do the most evil stuff to her, and then doesn't. But it is a good and effective scene as showing us how far he's willing to go. He didn't go the whole way, which we are of course very happy about, but he's willing to go far to get like info out of them and stuff like that. And one thing that also happens there is of course the prison group, or our main group, they're trying to save Maggie and Glenn. And one thing I wrote down in my notes is the whole shootout in Woodbury, where of course we have our group, or some from our main group that we of course love and like and live for. They are basically saving Glenn and Maggie. There is a shooting where there is so much stormtrooper aim. It is insane. There are people hitting absolutely niche. They have, 0 on their hit rate, like their rate of what they hit. They're hitting absolutely nothing. Some tree way behind in the back is getting hit by a lot of bullets because they're not hitting people at all. That's just something I wanted to say. I would rather not have a shootout and then ridden some other way than having a big shootout and just not hitting a single thing. Of course, they take Oscar because at this point, Oscar is actually a part of the group. They take Oscar but we know because up until this point, Oscar has barely gotten any screen time or any depth to him. So then we know that the only reason Oscar is in on this or on this rescue mission is because he's gonna get killed. You could see it from so far away. He is gonna get killed while saving many of them. So that is a little bit sad, but there's no build up. Like there's no build up, so not really that much reason to care about it. But again, another one from our group killed. Then something I also have is way later on, Michonne. This is where, like, Michonne basically stabs the governor in the eye with a glass, like a big shot of glass, I think it's called, I hope, in the eye. And I think it's straight up bad writing that he survives that shit. Like, that is crazy. Don't get me wrong, you could send me videos of those like 1 in a billion moments where someone gets a pole across like their whole body and they survive, or through their skull and something, I don't know. But at that point, I really think he should have died. I think they should have just cut him open or something. Don't get me wrong, that's probably someone will probably tell me in the comments that would have been so much more, a cut is so much worse or something like that. I could see it, but I just think it looks shit. I think he should have died there, so they should probably have written that in some other way, that she just cut his eye or something, in my opinion. I also have a little bit of a numbers problem when it comes to Woodbury, and I don't know if I'm the only one who has ever like picked up on this, or I'm the only one basically having a problem with it, but we get told that there is 75 people in this town, and people from Woodbury keeps dying. Like, they die in some small moments, some big moments, and I know that later on he basically gets some of the people that was not supposed to ever be shooting a gun, he gets them trained in shooting guns, so that's why he seems like he basically has more people down the line. I know that's what they're trying to go with. I get that. People die constantly, and the governor slaughters people very, very near the end, like from his town, when he goes berserk. He slaughters people, and somehow there's still always more soldiers. He always has more soldiers, and by the very end, the very last scene, they still have people that they can save and take to the prison. Like, how many people has to die for us to actually believe, oh, some people in this town dies? Like, that's something that I didn't really, I feel like that was a little bit weird. Milton, honestly, it's up to you. I have nothing to say on Milton. I did not have a single note on him, so I just wrote Milton because I don't know if I like him or if I hate him. He's just there. You cannot really take him out of the story, because then it wouldn't really work. So I feel like I should have something to say about him, but I don't. So please tell me what you think about Milton down in the comments. And then something I just touched on is saving the people from Woodbury at the very end feels very right to me. And yeah, I just, that part I don't really question. I like it because they have not done anything wrong. So I like it. So let's get into the third chapter, which is just Andrea and Michonne, because I think Andrea specifically is the most talked about character in this season on Reddit and stuff, because a lot of people don't like her in this season. So let's get into it. Andrea, I want to be clear about something. I actually do understand why she, for a large part of the story, is not like half the season, believes the governor, because he manipulates her well, and it makes sense. And I think a lot of people that watch forget that Andrea does not know everything we know. And that's something that is clearly a problem for many people when they watch like series in general. You do understand that Andrea does not, don't get me wrong, later down the line, I will get into it later down the line, she's kind of, but for a long time, she doesn't know what we know. And Michonne does not tell her that, something I'm gonna get into. So I do believe her. I don't hate her at all. Something I did respect, it's such a weird thing to get into, but I actually respect that she waited a while before even sleeping with the governor, like, you know, getting sexually with him, because it does allude to that pretty early on that they would do that, but she actually waits a long while before doing it, and I respect her for it because it feels like she kind of wants to actually know if he is to be trusted, and only when he had manipulated her enough she chose to do it, which I respected. She's not that stupid of a character that people make her seem out to be. But of course, the longer she stays in Woodbury, just the harder it is to justify, because at some point I generally don't understand what she's fighting for anymore, and this is nearing the end when the governor is like so fucked, like he's out of his mind. And that is, we get told that she fights for the people in Woodbury. She doesn't want people to get killed, either like the governor or the prison group, but also the innocent people. But we never really see the innocent people not acting like jerks. So it's hard for us to be like, oh, that's so good, Andrea. Yes, that's so good, because we never see them being good. I don't think they're not ever shown to be nice people, or very, very rarely actually. Don't get me wrong, they could be at some point, but very rarely. So yeah, there's also a point, this is probably my main issue with Andrea. There's a point where when Rick and the governor are having their meeting, where governor says that Andrea told the governor about Rick, Laurie, and Shane, you know, the whole thing with Shane, with the baby, like probably being Shane's baby and all that stuff. And I could not, like, I actually had to pause and be like, why would Andrea ever tell the governor about Rick and Laurie's and Shane's business? That to me seems so out of line and out of touch, and I know that it's probably just a excuse for having the governor know that and using it on Rick, but that is bad. That is bad. She outs their dirty laundry, and that is crazy to me. And then my biggest writing issue, one of my biggest writing issue in this season is actually both to do with Michonne, and one of them is here, and that is the Andrea and Michonne friendship. We are told that they are together for 8 months, which we of course believe, that is of course canon. I know that they are. We are just told that they're together for 8 months and they are now best friends. And we see a scene of them in the start of the show, of the season. And then much later in another scene we see them, and I'm like, yes, finally we see a scene from when they were together these 8 months. And it's basically a scene where they're getting hostile towards each other, so it doesn't actually show us anything. And it's just a lot of tell us, don't show us, and that's what I don't like about this. We're supposed to just believe they're best friends, but in this season, they are only bickering at each other. They are only arguing. They're arguing the whole time. But they're best friends. And I know that some of you would probably be like, but they were together for 8 months. They are best friends. But I would have liked to see them being friends over just something, because they seem to not be they seem to not be friends at all. They seem to be enemies at times. They only bickering at each other, only like being mad at each other. So that's probably one of my. I did not believe their friendship, basically. And it further with the scene when we see, I think that it's actually at episode 14 is the first time since episode 1, I think, where we see like a scene from them being on the road before meeting the governor. And that is the scene where they're hostile, so that just kills any idea of me believing that they're best friends. So yeah, I don't like that. And then another thing, this is the two worst things about this season to me. Oh, there's one more thing later. Michonne, the fact that she's written as mute, like as she cannot say stuff sometimes, or maybe like a lot of times, it's just pissing me off, because she could have saved so many like moments, or just have given people so much information that she just doesn't do, because she would rather stand being like, because I get that Michonne's character is supposed to be very hard, she's very hard to get to trust you, to open up to you, but there is so many points where she's not even telling Andrea stuff. She's just vaguely telling her something, or just standing looking at her, and not telling her stuff that could literally get Andrea over on the prisoner's side, or group's side. But she just, for the plot, is mystique and just doesn't tell her. That is one of my biggest problems. I hate it. It feels lazy. Because they are best friends, So why would she not even tell Andrea? I get, okay, you could make an argument for why she would not tell Rick maybe some important stuff or something. But it's weird that she doesn't even want to tell Andrea, because at what point is that just lazy? That's just lazy. Because she does know, Michonne does see and know stuff that could sway Andrea to be like, oh, the governor is not that good, but Michonne, she would rather just our farm. That's basically it. So I did not like that. So, of course, I made a chapter about Rick, Carl, Daryl, and Merle, because I think they are some of the most important characters this season, outside of Andrea and Michonne that I just talked about. There's a lot of characters, and this show, compared to like another show that was very bad, that just came out with a lot of main characters, this show actually does well at giving them all their time to shine, basically. And of course, I have already talked about Carl's transformation this season. He is way more ruthless, he's way more cold, he is killing walkers and people without hesitation, which could become a little bit of a problem, and it does a little bit at one point this season. But also when he kills Laurie, as I said, is one of the wildest moments in the show. I wanted to just say that again, it's crazy. I like one moment, and I'm not talking about Rick's descent into madness after Laurie dies, but just his overall. I like that it is shown that Rick's leadership in this world is destructive to him, and he actually gets stressed out about it. And the other characters, I think Herschel, Glenn, and Carl, are all at some point being like, bro, you're stressed, and we get it, you have to make every decision, do stuff all the time. And it's like that is pointed out, because it would be so easy for the writers to just be like, oh, let's just have Rick do absolutely everything in the show and not show how stressed he gets about it. Because at this point, I don't even feel like it's only because of Laurie he's stressed. He's just stressed because, damn, that man has to do everything. And not that he doesn't want to or arguing about not doing it, but he does it, and he has to do it, and he has to take every hard call, and the whole group relies on him all the time. And I just like that they actually are speaking it out, that damn, you are stressed, and that's fair, and we should do something about that, or you should take a little break or whatever. I wrote that down because I absolutely love that. I love that they are seeing that, holy shit, that is leadership in this world, and taking that many decisions and doing that much stuff, that does something to a person. So I just wanted to say that. Then there is his descent into madness after Laurie dies. I absolutely hate it. I hate everything about the phone calls. I think it's corny. I think his outburst on Glenn while he descends into madness is so out of character, and I don't think it is done in a way I liked or believed. You could tell me, and I would absolutely believe you, and it would be fine. But you could tell me the whole, like, someone ringing to him and him believing that there is someone on the other line and all that shit, and him seeing her everywhere. You could tell me that is something that does happen in real life when stuff like that happens, and I would believe you. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. I think it's the worst parts of the season by far. I hated seeing that stuff. I was just like, can we get on with it? So yeah, that's just something I wanted to say. And yeah, I did not like how that was made. I just didn't. Then we of course have Daryl. And Daryl, I think this season is one of the seasons, or if not this season, where most people watching the show absolutely starts to love him, because he is stepping up when Rick descends into that madness I just talked about. He has one of the best dynamics this season with his brother later on, when we of course learn that he's still alive and in Woodbury. And Daryl is just such a Chad this season. He is really stepping up and showing his true colors, and we love it. Merle's return is of course pure cinema. When he returns, he sounds like an old lady, but then the camera pans around and it's actually just Merle. Joke's on you, I'm back. He of course has lost his hand, so it's just some nice thing he has. Yeah, I like that. I like the whole governor turning on Merle, basically putting him in the crossfire when the whole town starts not believing in the governor, because the governor does not want to lose the town. So later on, Merle just gets put in the crossfire. He throws it under the bus to protect himself. I like that. I just like Merle throughout the whole thing. I think Merle is portrayed well. He's a dickhead. He plays it very well. You believe why he is, because they had a very rough childhood. That's one thing also you also hear about. And then later on, of course, Daryl is torn between his brother, his real family, and the group, which has become his family. He basically learns that his true family is the group, and when he decides to leave them, he goes back to them with Merle. And of course, Merle, having also, with that interrogation scene, having beaten Glenn to a pulp, like an inch of dying. Still, I like that there is a small moment again where Daryl talks to Glenn about it, being like, damn, I know what he did, and I'm sorry for that. And Glenn has a hard time still accepting it. It's something we're gonna get into later. Glenn has a hard time still accepting it, but I just liked that Daryl basically said sorry to Glenn for it, but still kind of having his brother, like, he still tries to support his brother, but still also is showing respect to Glenn and being like, damn, I'm sorry, man, because Glenn is also his family now, so it's like, for him is having two family members having a big clash, a big clash. And he also, Merle basically left Glenn for dead. There's a very, very good scene where Glenn has to fight a zombie while being tied to a chair. All that stuff, amazing. And later on, Merle actually gets a redemption, but because of what he has done throughout the whole series, but most of all this season, basically, he cannot be a part of the prison group, but he wants to have his redemption either way. So he goes out with a bang, trying to kill as many of the governor's men before getting killed by the governor. But the governor, of course, does not spare him from being a zombie. So later Daryl finds him, Merle dead, or having been killed. Merle's now a zombie, and there is a very, very gut-wrenching moment where Daryl is finding Merle and having to kill him, like, for reals, like in the head. And yeah, that's just a very sad moment, and you should definitely search that up on YouTube and watch it, because that's actually such a gut-wrenching moment. And Daryl, for the first time in the whole series, like, is really crying and looking like a little kid, and it's just a very sad moment. And this last chapter right here, I wanted to quickly get into the violence and trauma and a little bit about the end game, like this, the very late, like the very end of the season right here. I think Glenn, of course, interrogation proves how tough he is, and the trauma afterwards are handled very well, because we actually also get Glenn going through some shit, going through a lot of trauma with him being basically beaten to a pulp, nearly dying, and then, of course, thinking that Maggie got by the governor. There's a lot of stuff with that, and I liked how that is handled a lot more than how Rick's was handled. It's the same with Morgan. Morgan is also returning in this season, the one from season 1. That's what I'm saying. 16 episodes, you get some crazy stuff. Like, you get some crazy stuff. A lot of stuff is happening. I think Morgan's return and trauma is portrayed so much better, and with a lot of more care, and you believe it so much more. Don't get me wrong, what's happening to Morgan could also be exactly the same that's happening to Rick. We just see what Rick is seeing, and we're not seeing what Morgan is seeing. I don't know if that makes sense. I just liked how it's portrayed more in Glenn and Morgan's instances than in Rick. That's what I'm saying. But of course, Morgan returns, very nice. The only thing I have to say bad about that is I don't like how easy it is to take him down, considering how much shit he has. So many booby traps, so many weapons, so much stuff, and it kind of takes them 1 minute to take him down, not even. I get that there are 3 and he's 1, but I would have thought that would have taken a little bit more planning to take him down. So that's kind of the only bad thing I have about that. Also, Andrea staying in Woodbury by the very end, makes no sense. I feel like I've always said this a little bit. Andrea not killing the governor after having sex with him is laughable at that point, because she knows a lot and she knows that, okay, he should die. And I wanted to say right here, I don't hate Andrea like a lot of people do. And I think killing her off was the wrong decision. I do like Michonne, and I know that in the comics, Andrea is actually supposed to be the one ending up with Rick, or being with Rick. And that's of course what Michonne that's what Michonne ends up doing. If you wanted to know why I know all this, I have shorts, I have reels. This show has been out for 15 years. I have gotten things spoiled for me. So yeah, I know that happens. But yeah, still, I think that definitely was a she could have been in the story more, I believe. There's also people saying she is wildly wrong cast, and I have not written the comics, so based on those she could be, but I feel like she's doing a good job, but I'm not a professional critic. I'm just some random, I literally watched the show right there over in my bed, so I'm not some crazy guy. The final of the season is a letdown. There's no way around it. It kind of gears up for a big ending shooting battle with stuff happening and nothing really happening other than, don't get me wrong, stuff is happening. Andrea gets killed, stuff like that. But yeah, nothing else is happening. I still respect that the show throughout the whole of it did not shy away from killing characters. It does create a lot of, you believe that stuff could happen to characters all the time, and I love that. It creates stakes. I love it. But yeah, saving the people, as said, is a good thing, and I think it's the right call. I did really like season 3. It's definitely up there with one of my favorites. It does not take the cake. I still think that season 2, I still know that season 2 is my favorite season of the show, and I don't think it will change, because I could only see the show becoming wilder and wilder down the line. And what I liked about season 2 was that it was wild, but it was still believable. But season 3 is absolutely a good season. It's great television. I watched it in such a short time, like 3-4 days. I watched 16 episodes. It's insane. I think it worked really well. There was some shortcomings that I said, and yeah. The last thing I wanted to say is, if you have something to say, please write it in the comments. I want to read a lot of comments. I want to. And if you want to support a very small channel, consider liking and subscribing to this video and to the channel. And yeah, I hope you had a fun time hearing me yapping about the season a little bit. So yeah, see you later. Bye bye.